Hello, everybody. Welcome to Highway of the Hidden. I'm your host, Polar Bear. On tonight's episode, we have Chris from The Wandering Road, which is one of my favorite podcasts that I've been listening to since it started, from the Harry Potter episode all the way up to now. And I was lucky enough to be on your show. Chris, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, Polar Bear. Thank you so much for having me on the show. And I really appreciate the fact that, you're actually one of the listeners to the show. So Dean and I really appreciate that you've listened to us through since day one, since we started. It's a real, I would say, like, humbling type of experience that, like, we actually have an effect on people. And I know we had you on our show a couple weeks ago, and I think your episode is out right now. We released that, I think it was last week or the week before. And you did say yourself that, we kind of inspired you to create Highway of the Hidden. So I'm glad to be on your show.
Yeah, man. Y'all really did, dude. Like, listening to y'all, it's what made me think, like, man, these guys are helping people, and giving them a platform to where they can come out and say, hey, this happened to me. And y'all don't judge them. Because, you listen to some podcasts and people say, I got attacked by something in my sleep, or I seen this. And the host will be like, and, that didn't happen. And with y'all show, you don't get that. And that's why I like y'all a lot. You don't know how many shows I've unsubscribed to because I don't like when they attack guests for what they believe they saw.
Yeah, and I think that's the important thing. Like, if you want to have people on your show, you got to give them the platform to come out and say what they need to say. You can't really just sit there and just, try to bat away everything. I know there is a time and place for skepticism. And as you've listened to our show, Dean and I have a healthy amount of skepticism. Like, we're not going to believe everything at face value. If there's something that we think, maybe there might be a scientific explanation, not in the skepticism saying that somebody is lying. We would never go that far unless you're talking about maybe certain paranormal cases that are really popular in the media over the past. Like, we'll analyze those documentaries, and at the end we'll give our analysis of whether we think it's bullshit or if we think it's legitimate, just based off of what's presented. But I think the important thing that we do, and which I love doing, is just bringing someone onto the show, introducing them to the listeners, and just be like, please share your story, because I've been through stuff. Dean has been through stuff. So we know what it's like when you try to talk to somebody about this stuff and they look at you like you have 15 fucking heads.
Right. And so what was like the inspiration? What got you started, man? What got you going? What was like, this is it, I'm going to start this show?
Well, for the longest time, I was always into like the paranormal because of my experiences, which we'll get into. Always like aliens, UFO, Bigfoot. We talked about a little bit of Bigfoot when you were on our show.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, I try to talk to my wife about this stuff, who has no fucking interest of it. And it's like, okay, not going to get very far there. So I've always been a fan of podcasts. I've always listened to podcasts. I've been listening to podcasts for almost 20 years now, ever since it first started, with Jim Harrell's paranormal podcast. I used to listen to Real Ghost Stories Online. I think the host of that podcast I think it was Tony Bruschi. He like came out with that back in 2014, and that was really popular. I listened to the Confessionals podcast. If you've ever listened to that one with Tony Merkel, I was on a guest on his show back in like 2020. Yeah, one of his episodes. Just sharing my story, and that was even before I decided to create a podcast. So it started from a few things of, I'm interested in these topics. I want to talk about these topics. Really didn't have anyone close by me to to talk about these topics with, because all my friends are scattered all over the country. So middle of the pandemic, like everybody else that started a podcast, I was like, okay, let me give this a shot, because I was going back and forth. I was like, and then I finally made the decision. It was really weird how the decision came about. I recorded a few episodes, I did the editing, I did all the production value, whatever. I'm on the treadmill just running, and something in my head, I don't know, some people might say it's like divine intervention, or, just your subconscious or something. Something was like, post it. Just post it. See what happens. If it sticks, it sticks. If it doesn't, at least you tried. And that was the important thing. And then we just took off from there. So like you said, it started with like the Harry Potter thing, because the Hogwarts Legacy bullshit was going on. Over controversy over a fucking video game, but I won't get back into that. And the name of the show is exactly what it was meant to be with regards to the topics. Like every single week was going to be a different topic. But when I got into the paranormal episodes, I was like, I really enjoy talking about this. And then I had a few friends on, I had a few cousins on to talk about their paranormal experiences. Then eventually I had Dean on as a guest at first to talk about an AI episode. And we just gelled really well. You know, the conversation went back and forth. We complimented each other really well. And then I asked him, like, hey, dude, you want to come on the show full time? And he was like, oh, fuck yeah, I definitely will. Like, I actually wanted to do a podcast. Me and my wife were going to do one. We didn't get a chance, but I have all the equipment. And I was like, sold. And then we just started from there, and we've been going at it ever since.
That's awesome, man. That's cool, dude. I like the way that started. Yeah, that's kind of like mine, you know, just wanted a place, and Highway of the Hidden, the same thing, you know, all the hidden things. If you look at my thing right there with the eye, started with the conspiracies, and then the moon, there's a werewolf in it, and I think there's a Bigfoot somewhere in the picture, you know, and it's all the things that I really enjoyed, man. And like we went over your show, my encounters with the Bigfoot, and then paranormal encounters that I had, and that just was able for me to open up, because I told the one story that I've never really told anybody on your show that happened in Nebraska. It just led to this, man, and that's awesome, dude. I'm glad I could finally get you on and get to talk to you about it and stuff. So let's dive into it, man. Let's talk about your encounter if you want to.
Oh, absolutely. We'll get right into that. But real quick for your listeners, Polar Bear, if you want to hear his Nebraska story, go listen to his episode. That was probably one of the best episodes that I've done in quite a while. And that was episode 120. So go listen to his episode and then keep listening to his show.
Yes, that episode, honestly, I was listening to it the other day just to hear it again, man. And the way we were just all bantering back, the laughing, the joking, it was very good. Once we got rolling, man, it was, go check it out, The Wandering Road. And like I said, it's my personal favorite, so go subscribe to it, listen to it, check it out.
Definitely. And you'll love the Bigfoot conspiracy about World War II. That one caught me off guard. It's still my favorite.
And then the TikTok that you sent me last night when I was watching, I was like, dude, I laughed out loud, like super hard. I was like, there it is. I told you.
With Bigfoot and Yeti getting drafted to World War III.
Round 2, I don't know what they're gonna give them now, but round 2, here they come. You know, look out, Iran. Bigfoot and Yeti are on their way.
That was the bunker buster. Dude, they dropped Bigfoot in first, and then they dropped in the Yeti.
That's all they needed. That's all they don't even need troops. Just drop them too.
Yeah, right.
That killed me. Man, that conspiracy, dude. I went back into it some more, and I couldn't do it no more. I was like, golly. But yeah, Bigfoot, man, he won the war for us. In case anybody's wondering, if you're wondering where that came from, you have to go listen to the episode, and you'll understand. Be like, oh, I get it now. Yeah,
yeah, man. All right, man. I will get into these stories. All right, so it all starts I was born in 1990. So the earliest thing that I could remember with the paranormal experiences I had, the first one I encountered, I was born and raised in New York City. So for a long time, up until about age 8 or 9, I lived in the South Bronx. So this first experience happened, I was probably 5 to 6 years old. And I remember I was around that age because my sister had been born. She was born in 1995. So I remember waking up, and let me paint the picture of like what the apartment looked like in the Bronx. So you had your entrance to the apartment. There was a kitchen. There was like a big living room, hallway to just one bedroom, but it was like a pretty sizable bedroom. And when you walked in, on the right hand side would be like my sister's crib, my parents' bed, and then I had like my little bed, and they were all up against the wall. And on the left hand side, you had the dresser, the vanity, the TV stand and everything. And then there was just one big ass window with like a metal door, metal grate type of thing with the fire escape. So I remember waking up around, it had to be like 2 or 3 in the morning, right? I sit up in my bed and I look over to my right, and in front of my parents' like vanity are these like 5 or 6 dwarf looking type of things. I can't make out their facial features, but you could see like the shadows of them, and they're just standing there, and I'm looking at them. And I don't know what possessed me to do this, but I like pointed at them and I started shouting, you don't belong here. Why are you here? You need to get out. Like, you don't belong here. Like, get out of our house, get out of our room, whatever. My mom wakes up and she's like, she yells at me in Spanish. She's like, what the fuck are you doing? It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Your sister's asleep. Your dad has to wake up for work in a couple of hours. Like, why are you screaming? And I'm like, I'm screaming at like whatever's over there. We both look over, nothing there. So I'm like, okay, that's the earliest thing that I can remember. You fast forward to 2024. It's around May or June, and my parents live in Florida now. I don't know what possessed me to ask my mom about this, but I was like, hey, Mom, you remember when I was little and we were living in the Bronx in the apartment that I told you about these like little dwarf looking things, like, you know, in certain like Central and South American cultures and even in the Caribbean, they call them duendes, right? If you've ever heard that term before.
Yes.
And she was like, yeah, I remember. But that wasn't the only time that happened. There were a few times where like you were in your bed in the middle of the night crying, and I had to like sit in bed with you and, you know, console you and say like, nothing's going to get you, nothing's going to take you. And what's crazy to me is that I don't remember those other instances, but she does. And it scares me even more because it's like, why do I remember that specific time? But the other times, you know, I have no recollection of. But that starts the earliest of my paranormal experiences. Then in the late 90s, so about 98 to 99, my parents and my aunt and uncle, they come together, they buy this like duplex house in Queens, New York. So my parents and myself and my sister, we lived at the top apartment, and then they lived on the first floor. So we all start moving in, you know, furniture and stuff like that. And I don't know what day it was specifically, but it must have been like school had started or something like that. And when we moved in, it was like close to the start of school anyway. My mom had to go to work. My dad went to work. My aunt and uncle, they went to work as well. My cousin was in high school and I went to school. So my mom calls up her sister like, hey, can you babysit my sister? So she's like, okay. So she comes over, babysits my sister. My mom comes home from work, and my aunt like looks at my mom and says, you have visitors in this home. And my mom's like, what are you talking about? Did somebody come over, come looking for me or something like that? She's like, no, you have visitors in this home, implying that there are spirits in the home. So that happens. And then here's kind of like the weirdest, like the craziest thing you could take from a horror movie. So like as we're moving in, my aunt and uncle had this like stereo system that was like from like the 80s or whatever, like the mid to late 80s with the big ass speakers and everything.
Oh yeah, I remember those.
Yeah, so they had it set up like in a spot like you would walk in and it was just on the left hand side, right? I remember like nobody was home downstairs and I was upstairs and it just turned on by itself. So I go downstairs, turn it off, look around, I'm like, my cousin's not there, nobody's there. Okay, whatever. Didn't think about it. A few days later, I'm with my cousin and my sister. We're upstairs playing video games or whatever. It happens again. We're like, okay, that's really fucking weird. But the kicker for this is like we unplug the fucking thing, go back to do whatever we're doing, and it still turns itself on. So, you know, my aunt and uncle, being like the logical people, adults that they are, they're not going to go and say like, hey, this is a ghost or something fucking with people, fucking with our equipment. They got rid of it. They got a new one. And that fucking new stereo system still turned on by itself. So,
Yeah.
like make of that whatever, you know, whatever you want, whatever can come to whatever conclusion you want about that.
Right.
So that was like early on the minor things that started happening. And then like it went from like shit turning on and off to it then escalated to footsteps in the hallway and in the attic. And this like happened literally every fucking day. And it was active at night. And in the attic, it sounded like somebody had boots on. If I recall correctly, Polar Bear, you were in the Army, right?
Right.
So
right.
you know what those boots sound like when you're walking with them?
Yeah.
It's a very distinct sound.
Yeah, very
That's
heavy.
what it's very heavy. That's what it sounded like that was walking back and forth the length of the house in the attic. My parents and my aunt and uncle tried saying, it was squirrels and pigeons, making that noise. And I'm thinking, like, when I think back on that excuse now and that explanation, I'm like, they don't fucking wear Timberland boots. Like, what the fuck was up there
Right.
making that noise? And I don't know if it was a case of like, okay, we got three, like a teenager and two young kids in the house that we don't want to fucking freak them out. We just bought the house. Like, where are we going to go? And it was one of those things, like my parents would always try to come up with some type of explanation as to why certain things happen. So not only in the attic that this would happen, like even in our apartment proper, like you would hear footsteps and stuff. And in the hallway that connected like this, so like you would walk into the house and to the left would be the entrance to my aunt's apartment. And you would go up the stairs, and then there would be like a mini landing and the doorway to our place. And even there, you would hear the footsteps going up the stairs, down the stairs, and it would happen late at night.
Yeah.
Like nobody knew what the hell was going on. Then, man, I remember this to this day. Like it's like so fresh in my mind. This would happen every night between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. We would hear 3 distinct knocks on our door. And for your listeners that are familiar with the paranormal and with hauntings, 3 has a significance.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to the demonic or malevolent. It's 3 distinct knocks. So folks say it's, mocking the Trinity. So I remember like every night this would happen. Between 6 and 8 p.m. Like my dad would be sitting there watching fucking Tom Brokaw on like NBC News and shit. And then I would hear a knock on the door. My dumbass would be like, oh shit, my cousin, came up the stairs. He wants to go play like PlayStation or something like that. Open the door. Nobody's there. I look around. Okay, whatever. Shut the door. Go sit back down. Knocks on the door again. Open the door. Nobody's there. This would happen all the time when we moved into that place. One day it happened, and my dad didn't believe me that there was nobody there. He's like, okay, your cousin must be pulling a prank or something like that. So he gets up, he goes, he opens the door. There's nobody there. He goes downstairs, he looks, the door is locked. Nobody's home. The lights are off. No one is home. It's just me and my dad and my sister in the house. He didn't say anything after that. It was kind of one of those things like, oh, okay, I guess it is what it is at this point. So those are the experiences up until then. Any questions before I keep going?
Man, I was lost in it, dude. I painted the whole picture in my head. Wow. Oh, let's go back to the beginning. So Duendes, you're one of the first people I've talked to that actually has a Duendes like encounter or story. And did you ever figure out where they came from, what they were, or anything like that?
No, the only thing that like listening to other podcasts that with people that have had Duende stories is that they specifically make themselves known to kids, and according to some like folklore they like try to take children.
Right.
So it kind of reminds me of like fairies from Irish folklore and like
Yeah.
changelings and stuff, where they would try to take kids and they would swap them out with like a baby changeling or something of that sort.
Right.
So yeah, that's all I could really find out about Duende.
Yeah, and that's really strange. And I was, as you were saying, you only remember that one specific encounter, but your mom had so many more that she remembers, which is crazy, right? Like it's like, I don't know, like your brain blocked everything out, but that one was the one that you recall, and maybe that's the one they allowed you to remember, almost kind of thing, or I don't know how to break that one down really.
Right.
But you get what I'm trying to say, right? Like it's very creepy, man. And then go ahead, sorry.
No, I think it's one of those things like multiple experiences. Why do I remember that one distinctly? And maybe because I think I tried to confront them in that instance, like basically like, get the fuck out of my house, dude. Like, I don't know why you're here. Like,
right.
Like, what are y'all doing? Get out. So I think maybe that's why that like sticks in my mind.
Because you went into fight mode instead of flight mode. And I guess that's what like your adrenaline was going, so maybe that's why you remember it. And then the walking of the boots, man, either y'all have some big ass squirrels in New York. That was definitely spiritual, man. And I don't know, but like we covered on your show too, it's like our parents' generation, man, they never wanted to admit anything was haunted. They kept that hidden. And like I said, maybe it was trying to protect y'all because they knew y'all were younger and y'all wouldn't understand. Or maybe they just straight up was like, no, this is not happening. Maybe their theory was if we don't give it attention, it'll go away. But clearly it didn't. If it keeps going up the stairs and keeps coming back down, knocking on your door, and you know, it's one of those things, man. Like you hear stories like that, so many where the parents are like, I don't want to listen to it, but the kids are like, man, this is happening. You know, this is going on. This is in the room with me, or this is in the house. This is what happens when y'all leave. And sometimes the dad could be sitting right there and it'll walk in front of them and be like, do you see that? Oh no, that was the wind. I don't see the wind.
Like with my dad, like the door fucking, like he opens the door, it's nothing there, and it's like, okay, all right, I'm gonna just go back to watching the night.
Yeah.
Like, okay, like what the fuck is going on?
And it reminds me of like this one time when I used to live in this apartment and I had this like little dresser nightstand thing. It was small. The whole thing was like 3 foot tall, maybe like 3 foot wide, small, super small, but it would vibrate, right? By itself, and it just reminded me of that story. And I would open it, nothing would be in there. But it would just random times, just vibrate, and I could never chalk anything up to it. But you know, the older guy who was living there would say, "Oh man, it's just the way it's built." And I'm like, "That? What do you mean the way it's built? It's just gonna rattle?" Like, oh, okay, cool. You know, I don't. It's just one of those things, man. They just refuse to admit that maybe something is going on. But
oh yeah, absolutely. And I can definitely see that, especially now that my parents, like, we've been out of that house since 2007, and it's now 2025. Like when I talk to them about it, they're open about it. Like all of my relatives that either lived in that home with us or visited that home while we were living there had some sort of experience.
Right.
And now when I talk to them about it, it's kind of funny to them.
Yeah.
And not funny in like a malicious way, like, oh, you're crazy. It's like funny in like, yep, this did happen, but we didn't know how to process it at the time.
And that makes more sense. And honestly, like the house I was in now, like stuff started happening and the kids are like, hey, what's going on? I'd be like, I don't know, just go to bed. You know, because, and I get it, like you don't want to just be like, man, well, you know, hey, we got a ghost, just make room. But it's just one of those things, you know, I don't know. It's my mind is trying to process everything you told me, and it's just like it's freaked out. Honestly, it's been a while since I've been freaked out, but I'm freaked out on this one.
Oh, it gets worse.
Awesome.
I'm trying to freak out even more. But for a quick side story about, I think it might have been last summer. I actually called my aunt that lived below us, just talking to her to catch up, and somehow the conversation, because she like listens to the show as well, and she's like actually happy that I shared what happened in that house. She was like really encouraging and really supportive. She's like, yeah, you need to talk about that because that ghost or spirit or whatever was fucking insane. So she told me that when we were in the process of moving into the house, across the street from us were two older women that lived there. I think they were like from Germany or something like that. They had lived there for quite a while. And they said to her as we were moving in, they asked her, I'm sorry, did you cleanse that house? And my aunt was kind of confused, like, what are you talking about? And they were like, yeah, you should cleanse that house before you move in and after you move in. Because apparently, according to them, and you're talking about over 20 plus years ago, probably, was it 27 years ago? So they're long gone by now. So I take this with a grain of salt because I wasn't there to verify it. And this is coming secondhand from my aunt. She said that the people that had lived there previously were into, I guess, occult type of shit.
Oh, wow.
And did some weird shit in that house, and might have like welcomed in negative spirits or something.
Yeah.
And they gave her that warning. To make matters even worse, in the attic, the people that the previous owner had died and her kids like just sold everything as is. So we had to like clear everything out, furniture and everything. In the attic, they found World War II memorabilia from the Nazi side.
Wow.
Boots, a uniform. It was either a Wehrmacht uniform or it was either a Waffen SS uniform. And if it was a Waffen SS uniform, you could only imagine the fucking terrible shit that person did.
Right.
And for them to be living in the United States, yeah, they kind of, with all that stuff, like, I'm sure it wasn't easy to get it over. So that's kind of self-explanatory. But the thing with the neighbors telling her about them being a part of the occult, I take that with a grain of salt. But with the World War II stuff, like, I asked my aunt about that, and she's like, oh yeah, definitely, we did find that stuff. And another thing that my aunt did, which my mom didn't want her to do, they kept some of the furniture. They kept some of the dining room furniture, like some of the cabinets and stuff. And I'm like, I'm always against that type of stuff. So
yes, 100%.
yeah, I'm thinking maybe that had something to do with it. But that was like a quick, like, side story of, you know, as the more I talk about this stuff, the more people from my family that used to live there, they just come out and start telling me things about that place. But you know, like, going back to my dad, like, there were quite a few instances where he just, like, ignored it and all that stuff. And I remember, if you remember what I said previously, like with the footsteps, we would hear the footsteps in our part of the home, like walking back and forth. It would go all the way to like one end of the living room. Then it would walk to the kitchen, stop in the kitchen, and just walk back and forth all fucking night. My mom is a light sleeper. My dad isn't. So she would get up and she would hear it and she'd go check it out, make sure the kids are okay, everything, to, you know, whatever. I guess one night my dad had trouble sleeping and the footsteps were happening again. My mom got up and he was like, no, I'm going to go this time. I don't remember hearing any of this because as a kid and a teenager, teenagers are usually heavy sleepers.
Right.
And same thing with my sister. So the story goes that my dad got up, took a baseball bat, you know, just to protect himself in case there was actually somebody there.
Right. Yeah.
He was like walking around the living room and there's nothing there. And he hears the footsteps and he does the worst thing you could possibly do. He starts swearing at it. He starts yelling, swearing. He's like, leave my fucking family alone. Like, you need to get the fuck out of this house. Like, you're not welcome here, yada, yada, yada. And when people do that in the paranormal world, that's kind of viewed as agitation. Like, you're not supposed to do that type of stuff. And I think him doing that might have led to what happened to my aunt. And this is one of the instances where whatever that entity was got physical. So I remember it had to have been summer, be 2004 or something like that. I'm standing in the kitchen. So to paint the picture for you, when you go into the house, like you walk into our portion of the home, you go up the stairs, you walk in. When you walk in, you're in the dining room. Directly to your right is a doorway with a door that leads to the kitchen, and the kitchen is kind of rectangular shape. When you go straight through the kitchen, there's another doorway with a hallway that's probably maybe 8 to 10 foot wide. And when you stand in the doorway before you enter that hallway, directly to the right is a closet door. Like you go maybe 3 feet, and then the closet doors to the right. There's the room, my parents' room, to like on a diagonal to the right, and then my room on a diagonal to the left, right? And then directly across from the closet room door is the bathroom entrance. So my sister is standing in my room doorway. I'm standing at the entrance of that little hallway with my mom standing right next to me. My aunt walks out of my parents' room, walks out, turns, walks towards the bathroom, opens the door, steps 1 foot inside, and gets tossed backward into the closet door. And she came off a good 1.5 feet off the ground and was shoved about 7 feet, I would say. So if you think about that trajectory, like, and when she was shoved, like it was, you know, when you push someone like in front of you and you like shove them, like their hands go out like this when they're not prepared. That's the same exact motion that she made. She like gets like backward this way into the closet door. And you're talking about a lady that's in her mid 50s. Like she could have gotten really hurt by that.
Right.
And my mom watched this. I watched this. My aunt experiences it. My sister's watching this. And my sister's probably like 7 or 8 years old. I'm probably 13, 14 at the time. And my mom, like, I love that woman. Like, she's a quick thinker. She's like, maybe the ghost had to take a shit. Like, you know, making a joke out of it.
Yeah.
So, like, dude, it plays in my head like like a fucking movie every now and then.
Man, so going back to the German ladies coming up and saying, "Hey, did y'all cleanse the house?" to them finding the Nazi stuff in the attic. I'm wondering, man, and me just thinking, do you think those two correlated at all?
Maybe might have
And then,
been some sort
and
of
maybe the people
correlation.
that lived there before might have been Germans too, in some point. And I'm not saying all Germans are bad, so don't take it that way. But maybe like they were part of some satanic cult, and they were trying to draw the energy from that Nazi uniform, and that's what it got, the stomping of the boots and all that, and then being physical, I guess, and it's growing stronger over time off the energy in the house.
Yeah, I would think so, because I think I might be wrong, but either the previous owner, the lady, might have passed away in the home as well. And I know when like they purchased the home, apparently like the kids, this was like going through like real estate negotiations and stuff like that my mom told me about. Like the kids just wanted to get rid of the house. They didn't like care for their mom or whatever. They did not like her. They did not like the home. They just wanted to get rid of it. And I wouldn't be surprised if there was some type of occult type of thing going on there, because those ladies claim that like some like teenage girl went missing and they suspect like those people over there had something to do with it. But then again, that's hearsay. I never had a chance to research it.
Right.
Because you would have to look far back into like maybe, man, you're talking about like the 60s or 70s or something like that. So I just never had the time to dedicate and look into it. That's why I always say I take that portion that was shared with me with a grain of salt. But with the shit that I saw with my aunt, that yeah, if somebody can so here's the thing for your listeners listening to that story. If somebody can message me and scientifically explain what the fuck happened, I would rather that be true and it have a scientific explanation, as opposed to having to live with the fact that some sort of unseen entity attacked my aunt.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, because that's, man, dude, that, because at this point it's physical now. Now
Oh yeah,
all gloves are off, or at that point in time, it's that's a strong spirit, that's not just your everyday, I'm going to walk through the door and scare you, or I'm going to knock on your desk or something. No, at this point it's angry. It's putting hands on people. And what it seems like from the story, it's like it's only targeting the women in your household, which is very, so it's a very abusive spirit, but only towards women, which is,
it mainly targeted the women. I don't know if it didn't target my dad and my uncle much, because one, they were always working at the time, so my dad would work 10-11 hour days, same with my uncle. So I guess they never, like, they're too fucking tired, like you just go pass out, like you're not really gonna
right,
pay any mind to anything like that. But about that story with my aunt, like when I talked to her recently and I actually brought it up, she started laughing about it. She was like, "Oh, I remember that perfectly." And she's like, we laughed about it a little bit. And she's like, "Yep, I remember that day exactly." She's like, "There's so many things that happened in that house while she was there babysitting my sister that she never talked about."
mm-hmm.
That she kind of brought up with me. She was like, "Yeah, I would hear like door slam, like the cabinet doors would open and close on their own." And this thing that she said, like she would hear like voices calling out her name. This happened to me as well. So she's like, when you guys weren't home, there was always like activity going on. And you're talking about in broad fucking daylight too.
Yeah, not at 3 a.m, like,
no.
Yeah.
No. So that's why, like, when I talk to other people about this, other podcasters and stuff, and like my one buddy JJ that hosts Southern Demonology, that's why he thinks like it might have been something demonic for it to put hands on people, for it to be so active during the day, because it not only put hands on my aunt, it also put hands on my grandmother as well, who lived in the basement with us. And it, like, after my grandfather passed away, he passed away with cancer back in 2004.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah. You never really get over something like that. You just kind of cope with it. So he ends up passing away. And my grandmother was like really close with my mom, and she confided in her in a lot of things, like shortly before she passed away in 2008. And she basically said that, like, it doesn't let me sleep. She's like, she hears voices all the time. She said like there's been a few instances where she'd be laying in bed sleeping and like a fucking glass of water would just be like tossed in her face. And you're talking about somebody that's like living down there alone. There's nobody else with her. And like it would shove her. And like it, when she like fell and broke her wrist, she was adamant that something pushed her. She never walked with a cane. She never lost her balance for the 83 years that she was alive.
Mm.
Like that lady was always like a clean bill of health. Like I've never seen her fall over. And she said that something pushed her that caused her to break her wrist. And I think, now this is just my theory, that my grandmother on my dad's side, she was a devout Hindu. She would wake up before dawn every day and pray. I guess whatever was in there did not like that she did that. My aunt got pushed into the wall, well, tossed into the wall. She's a devout Christian. She prayed every day. So I noticed, like, you know, just thinking back on this stuff, pattern of religious people being attacked. Now, I'll openly admit, when I was younger, I was like an atheist because I was like big into history. And I always asked 1,000,001 questions. I was like, okay, if God exists, why did he allow all like X amount of atrocities to happen? Like, why didn't he intervene? All of these, you know, logical questions that, you know, a child would ask. But as like I got older into like my mid-teen years, like that started to change for me, because me saying that ties into one of the scariest experiences that I ever had. So to preface it as well, I would hear someone call my name when I would be in that house alone. Sometimes it would mimic my mom's voice. It would mimic my dad's voice. Those two in particular. So I remember one time I was in my room and I heard my mom's voice call me. So I got up and went to go see what it was. I was like, hey, Mom, did you call me? Did you need something? And she's like, no, I've been listening to the radio, which she did have the radio on full blast. Just cooking, whatever. I don't need anything. I didn't call you. So, you know, you fast forward like a couple weeks, happens again. I get out of my room. I go find my mom. I was like, hey, Mom, did you call me? And she's like, no, I did not call you. And at that point, she was like, you know what? When you hear that again, don't answer it. Don't respond, because it's the dead call. So I don't know if you ever heard that before. Like when, you know, you just randomly, you're by yourself and you hear someone call out your name. But that was like what my mom said to me. Here, I'll fast forward to that experience I mentioned. So this is probably like the fall of 2006, 2007. I was coming up on finishing up high school, right? I came home around 11 o'clock in the morning because I was, you know, like when you're almost done with high school, you barely have any classes, and like you go in at 7, they let you out at 10:30 or whatever. So that was the case for me. I get home. I was home alone. My dad was at work. Mom's at work. Sister's at school. Aunt and uncle are at work. And my cousin's at college at the time. My grandmother wasn't home either because like this like bus would take her over to a senior citizen center every day. So I go to my room, turn on my Xbox, start playing whatever I'm playing, right? So just sitting there doing whatever I need to do. And then I hear my mom's voice call my name. Chris. You know, I look around, I'm like, okay, my mom's not home. I'm going to ignore it. Whatever. Calls my name again. I get irritated. So I pick up my phone. I call my mom on her cell phone and she answers me. She's like, hey, is everything okay? Is there something going on? Like, I'm at work right now. What's going on? And I tell her like what exactly is happening. And then she's like, you know what I told you before? Like, you know, just stay in your room. Don't acknowledge it. Don't answer it. I'll be home like around 1, 2 o'clock. Okay. So I'm like, okay, whatever. Hang up the phone. Continue doing whatever I'm doing. I hear my name being called again. Ignore it. Remember how I said earlier on, from the dining room to the kitchen, there was a door?
Yeah.
In that doorway. That fucking door was wide open. My dad liked to plastic over the windows to keep the heat in the house. I don't know if your dad did that too.
It's not that cold down here.
Yeah. Oh, right. That is true. Like y'all are in Texas, so like you don't have to worry about that. But for us, we did that because it just, you know, kept the house insulated and, you know, kept the heat in. So I ignored the voice, and then I hear this fucking boom. The door fucking slams shut. I'm like freaking out. I shut my bedroom door, I lock it, and I don't remember what I did at after that point because it was like all a blur from that point on of the door slamming. But one thing I do know is that when my parents got home that day, I told them I do not want to live here anymore.
Yeah.
And that prompted them to like, they were already looking for a house for like the past year, and then that kind of like just set it to like warp speed.
Right.
Okay, we need to find something, because I was never one to, you know, really pay mind to that stuff. Like I would always ignore it, you know, continue doing what I'm doing, because it's like, you know, what other option do I have? But once the parents hear the kids say like, I don't want to live here anymore, I don't feel comfortable in this home, you know, it like put them in, you know, fight or flight mode, and they're like, okay, I'm not gonna let this thing fuck with my kids anymore. So those were my stories that I had in that house. But I do have some really creepy stories. A few from my sister,
Okay.
and a couple from my mom. So like I said, we moved into the house back in like the late 90s. My sister, when we initially moved in, she would have been like 4 or 5 years old. What do kids around that age, between the 4 and the 8 bracket, have? They have imaginary friends, right? So you really don't think anything of it. So my sister had this distinct imaginary friend only in that house called Andy. And she described it as like a little 5 to 6 year old boy that wore like a 1920s sailor suit outfit. So that shit gives me like Robert the Doll type vibes.
Yeah, that's how my mind went right to that, man.
Yeah, so my sister would always play with this imaginary boy. And nothing creepy about, you know, your kid having an imaginary kid, right? An imaginary friend. The creep factor comes in, and I remember this day clearly. It was in the summer. Me, my mother, my sister, and my grandmother were getting ready to walk to the grocery store, because in New York, you could literally walk everywhere. We convene outside the house, and like my sister like looks like, you know how like when little kids hold on to your hand or hold on to another kid's hand, she's like, it looks like she's holding on to something. And we're walking, and then my mom asks like, oh, is Andy coming to the store with you? And my sister says, no, he's not allowed to cross the street past this point. And then she like lets the hand go, and she's like, his mom doesn't allow him to go that far. And my mom's like, okay. It was like one of those things, if it's an imaginary friend, it fucking go everywhere with you, right?
Go anywhere you want.
Yeah, but no, Andy was bound to the vicinity of that home. Then we fast forward to when my grandfather passed away. I don't know like what happened with, maybe it was a product of my sister getting older, because we're talking about 2004 when this happened. So my sister would have been 9 years old, and my cousin would have been 8, who she was really close with. So we're all at the house for the wake after the funeral. It was probably, I don't know, 9-10 o'clock or so, as she says. She always had like a shit ton of like Barbie dolls and Bratz dolls in her room, and the cousins wanted to play with them. So her and my cousin were like, okay, we'll go upstairs, you know, we'll get your Bratz dolls. My sister said that she went upstairs into our apartment, and standing in the doorway before she got to her room was Andy, standing there like with an angry look on his face. You know how like kids, like when they stand and they're like mad like this, just fucking staring at her, pissed off. And she looks to my cousin. She's like, do you see that? And my cousin's like, yeah. And they just both scream and they book it. Yeah. Apparently my sister says that like I came up the stairs after them because I heard them scream, but I don't remember doing that. So that was the one experience that she had. Then whatever this thing was, she said there was one instance in the summertime, she went downstairs to go and be with my grandparents prior to my grandfather's passing, and she was walking up these stairs. So there was 2 sets of stairs that you could get to the basement, that took you to the basement. So there was a side door from the outside, and directly across from my aunt and uncle's like bathroom door, there was like a doorway in which you could either go straight outside or you could go down the steps. And at the main entrance of the house, in the by the stairwell to go up to our place, there was like you took like a little sharp right turn, and there was like a little, what is that? What do they call it? That round like staircase, that twirling staircase type of thing. It was like a half turn where there was like a door, but it still continued down.
Yeah, I know
down
what
the
you're talking
steps. Yeah, yeah.
about. I know. Yeah, it's kind of like a light tower, almost staircase. Yeah,
Right, yeah.
but I can't
Right.
think of the name of it. But I know which one you're talking about.
Right. So she said that she was walking up that staircase, the tower style, and she felt something push her and she fell up the stairs. And I always clowned her for doing this because she started screaming, "Help! Somebody help me!" Like very dramatic. And I go bolting down the stairs. My mom's coming up behind me and she's like on the steps screaming for help. And you know, me being a kid, 14 years old, I'm fucking laughing my ass off because I'm thinking you fell up the stairs and you're just being overly dramatic.
Right.
But when we fast forward and we talk about it right now, she's like, "Chris, the reason that I started screaming like that is because I felt something like push me really hard." And my sister was like a tiny, like skinny, like frail 9-year-old girl. So you could only imagine like what that felt like for her. And yeah, those were the couple experiences she had in the house. And she always said that she's heard footsteps, she's heard things call her name, and it was just a horrible experience. And another thing is that she used to sleepwalk in that house all the time. And as soon as we move out, she never sleptwalked again in her life.
I've heard that before of stuff
Yeah.
like that, like people living in a super like
Mhm.
haunted house, like a really active house, and them doing like just crazy, like sleepwalking, moving things and stuff, and then they move out, and it's like it never happened. Dude, that's oh wow, yeah,
Yeah, and I forgot to mention one thing, a couple of other things. Like one thing happened to me, the other thing happened to my cousin. And it was kind of funny because it both kind of happened not on the same night, but it was kind of like the same instance of like why we both got up in the middle of the night. So I woke up like around 2 a.m. because I had to take a piss and my door was closed. I get
Yeah.
up out of my bed, I walk to my door, and I go reach for the handle to open it, and I hear this fucking low guttural growl like there was some sort of predator at the other end of that door. Think of, you remember Beauty and the Beast when he like fights the wolves to save Belle and like he scares them off with like that type of growl?
Yeah.
Think of that. I'm like 13 years old. I gotta pee. I go to open my door. I hear that fucking low guttural growl. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I'm not opening that door. I just took my ass straight to bed and I just laid there until the sun came up. My cousin shared a story. He lived downstairs. He sleeps with his door closed as well. He got up around 2-3 in the morning to go pee, and he sees like at the bottom, like you could see the light coming in from the bottom of the door. He sees this light going from the bathroom down towards the basement, bathroom down towards the basement. He laid in bed and watched that thing from when he woke up until his parents got up for work, just going back and forth, back and forth. So yeah, so those are some of the like kind of funny but like really fucking scary things.
Yeah, those are intense. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
going on.
And I'm not an expert in the paranormal field, but I don't know what it was, so I can't say yes, it was a demon, but whatever it was, man, was very strong and very evil.
Yeah.
From pushing to getting mad, and they always say like demons come to kids in child form as well.
Yep.
Just so they can earn your trust and then manifest into their full potential, I guess.
Yeah.
To growls, to mimicking, because the mimic spirit, you know, where they mimic voices, and they do that a lot. And I don't know, I've heard like a few different reasons why they do that. I think it's to draw you out, to attack you, or maybe to
like make you comfortable or vulnerable.
Yeah, possess you or whatever. Yeah, so you come out in like not so much a guarded way. You come out like, what does my mom need? And you walk out, and I'm not really sure why they do it, but I've heard that, man. That's such a eerie thing, because imagine how many times in public, like you've been walking and you hear your name, right? And you're like
the fuck?
Nobody. Yeah, like there's nobody here. Like, what do you, and it's just like, man, what is that? You know, and it's the same. And I couldn't imagine being in your house, because I get freaked out when I hear that in public. I'll walk and I hear somebody say my name. It was just like yesterday, I heard somebody do it. And I'm like, man, there's nobody here, you know? Yeah, I'm in the aisle by myself. Like, why would somebody be? It's just like, I couldn't imagine my own house. Like, well, I don't know. But now you just man.
Imagine living with that for almost 10 years.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
For almost 10 years. And to make matters worse, now that you bring up the name calling thing again, which I did forget to mention, is that I wasn't the only one that heard that. There was one instance where like I heard my name being called with my mom's voice, and my mom fucking heard it too.
See, it's even then, like, and see, so it's like it would have to know that your mom was there, or maybe it's trying to get her to come check it out too.
And here, like, I'm glad you brought up like the demonic thing as well, because here is where my conclusion like leads to it potentially being demonic, because this happened before we moved out.
Mhm.
So I mentioned before, like, I was, born and raised Catholic. My mom's Catholic. My mom's like super Catholic. She's like, she like goes, like, if she can't go to church, she'll watch like the mass on TV. Like,
Oh,
if
wow,
you
okay.
come to our house, you'll see like crucifixes and Jesus everywhere. So shortly before we moved out, my mom liked to go around that. So my mom being Catholic, and she's like really into it. She would every now and then she would go around, blessing the home, like burning incense and stuff. So this took place shortly after we moved out. She had one of those like lantern looking things you see at churches where they burn like incense and stuff.
Yeah, that goes. They swing it back and forth on the chain.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, she had one of those, and she was, going around our place just cleansing our area. So she goes downstairs, and I believe this was like on a Saturday or so. And my uncle that lives down there, like, he's Muslim. So she asked, like, can I do this? Can I do the cleansing? And he's like, I don't give a shit. It's all the fucking same to me. So she goes, does it in the living room, dining room, kitchen, computer room, their bathroom, my aunt's room, and then she gets to my cousin's room. And she walks in. She starts swinging the urn thing around, and then she starts praying. And then she said she felt like a hand on her throat, like something was choking her. And it was just her in that room, to the point where she's like, okay, I'm done. I need to get the fuck out of here. She said the atmosphere was really thick, felt like something was choking her, and she just had to leave. This did not happen in any other room in the house except that one, which made me believe that whatever was in there occupied that specific area.
Yeah.
So that night, my mom goes to sleep, and she told me like about this dream directly the next morning. She said that she dreamt that she was laying in bed and all of her surroundings was the same to the house, to her room. Every detail was the same. There was nothing off to indicate that this was a dream, but she knew she was in a dream. And in her bedroom doorway was this old lady pointing at her and yelling at her, saying, excuse me, you're trying to get me out of my own fucking house? I'm going to fucking kill you and your fucking family. This is my fucking house. Nobody's going to remove me from here. My mom said that in the dream, she got up, grabbed the lady by her neck, pinned her against the wall, and said that you're not going to fucking kill anybody. If anyone's going to kill anyone, I'm going to kill you. You're not going to touch my kids. You're not going to touch my family. I will kill you. You will not touch my family. And then my mom said the creepiest thing happened, that it shape shifted to a little girl begging and pleading for my mom to let her go. And then my mom said that one of my aunts, who's like also sensitive and can see things, randomly appeared in her dream and was like, let it go. It's not going to do anything. It's just bluffing. She lets it go. And then she wakes up and she tells me that story the next morning.
I'm at a loss for words. I don't even know how to. So she went toe to toe with whatever it was, like legit.
Yeah.
And oh man, and I think her being a devout Catholic like that, like and they have to run in the name of Jesus anyway. And so I think it was bluffing, like your aunt. It was bluffing. It couldn't do nothing because the house was blessed, and it was just trying to, you're gonna do what I tell you, but. That's why you call out the name of Jesus and it runs, but it's just that's trippy.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like could it have just been a dream just to be a dream's sake? Sure.
Yeah,
absolutely, sure. But the sequence of events, it can't be a coincidence.
No, not something like that, man. Not with everything that's happened, and then you bless that, and then she blesses the house, and then the dream just happens to take place, and everything's the same, and then no. No, it's not a coincidence. It was coming to, I guess, try to scare her, maybe bully her, push her around, and she wasn't going to let it happen.
Kind of like one last hurrah before we left. After we left, my aunt and uncle stayed for a few more years. I think they stayed until At maybe at least 2013 or 2014.
Wow.
So this incident that happens in 2014 happens to my sister. So this is the final incident that happened in that house to my sister. My sister had graduated from high school, and my cousin that I mentioned that went with her to get the Bratz doll and saw the Andy kid pissed off, she happened to be there because she came up for the graduation. And the only reason they were at that house again is because my aunt wanted to throw my sister like a celebratory barbecue. So they were all like in the backyard or whatever, but they needed to go and get something from inside the house. And for whatever reason, maybe they were sitting in front of the house or something like that on the front steps. They decided to go through the front doorway, and that one area I told you about where it had the like castle type staircase, in that hallway is where the shoe rack was. So my cousin and my sister go into the doorway, they go to that hallway to take their shoes off. As they're taking off their shoes, my sister's like bent down untying her laces. My cousin nudges her and was like, "Hey, Jenny, do you see that?" And my sister looks up, and they're both staring at this tall, dark mass. Now, I can't remember if my sister said it had like red eyes or something like that. Might have been. But just this tall, dark mass. And you can feel the anger and the hatred coming off of it, she said. Kind of like, why the fuck are you back here?
Yeah.
Like it was waiting for her or something like that. So my sister, they both leave. They left the barbecue and didn't go back to that house. Fast forward to February of 2022, and my cousin, now she had moved to Georgia, living in Georgia and stuff in Atlanta. She came back to New York for work. So my sister went over to visit her. And one of my aunts, my dad's sister, lives like 7 or 8 blocks over from the old block we used to live on. So they had left my aunt's place to go on a walk to the main boulevard to like go to the store or something. And for some particular reason, they don't know why, they both decided, hey, let's walk down the old street. So they're walking down the old street, and they're on the right-hand side of the street across from the house. They don't know why they did this, but they crossed the street and decided to walk by the house. My sister said as they're walking by the house, simultaneously, they both feel these like really sharp pains in their head, like the worst headaches they've ever had in their life. And it did not stop until they got all the way to the other side of the street, away from the vicinity of that home. And she said the entire time she was walking by, it felt like something was staring. And with that home, dude, like ever since we moved out, anybody that like moved in, like could be a perfectly happy family, it would just start to fall apart.
Yeah.
Like they would get divorced, the kids would go off the deep end, like being bad kids and all this other stuff. And my cousin, who I'm like really close with, and who he was my escape from that house. Like I would always go over to his place. He says that, you know, like every other weekend there would be like cops called there and all this crazy shit going on, like people pulling knives on each other, like people that just lived there, they would just be like perfectly fine moving in, and then shit would just hit the fan.
Yeah.
Those are my stories about that house. I have a couple of other experiences that are kind of minor afterward, but I'll just open the floor to you, man, if you have any questions about all that.
Man, so have you yourself been back like by the house, to the house, or anything like that?
Back in probably 20, I didn't like directly walk by it. I drove by it because I had went to visit my cousin
And so
during that summertime. Yeah, I've seen it, but
I wonder if the people that move in, like you, I wonder if you have to be like, clearly there's something up with the house, right? And there's something strong in that house. So you either have, I think, from my opinion, you have to be strong in your faith of Christianity to even go near that house, to be able to live there. Because if not, I mean, all the crazy stuff from what you're saying is going on with these families is just absolutely insane. So every few years it's changing owners and people are selling it left and right.
Yeah. So from what I understand, yeah. I purposely left this part out, but I feel compelled to share it.
Okay, go for it.
And I could send you the picture afterward.
Okay.
But yeah, just don't share it on the socials.
No, I don't share anybody's stuff. No.
Yeah. So if you want to edit that part out that we were just talking about.
Yeah, I will. I'll do all that.
Okay. So Yeah, man. This part I kind of left out intentionally, but I now feel kind of inclined to share it. So early on in the show, as in The Wandering Road, I was interviewing my cousin about her experiences while
Mhm.
she would come to visit and, stay over and stuff. During that episode, as she started to talk about that house, my cousin calls me. And this is my cousin that lives like across the street, like diagonally from that house, a few houses down. So he calls me. I asshole button him and I respond to him saying, like, I'll call you in a bit. I'm recording a pod. You know what he does next? He sends me a selfie of him parked with the house in the background. He did not know this recording was happening. He did not know who I was talking to. He did not know what we were talking about. As soon as my cousin started talking about that story, like those stories from that house,
Yeah.
he calls me. Then he sends a picture of him parked in front of that house. And these are the messages that we shared after he sent me that picture. I said, "You bitch." And he's like, and I said to him, "Bro, it's fucking wild that you sent that because I'm literally talking to our cousin about that house." Then he's like, "LMFAO, I don't really stop there either. The forces are working."
Yeah.
So,
Man, I'm at such a loss right now. Like I've been at a loss for this whole since you started the story. This is one of the craziest stories I've ever heard. Like honestly, it's so creepy that there's entities out there and there's people like you that have these stories and they go through this and it's just
mhm.
and then as you think you're getting away from it, right? You're like, let me interview my cousin just to, help with the podcast and get some information out there. And then boom, takes a selfie. He's right there in front of it. Just happens. And he's like, I never go this way. I just figured I'd show you. And it's just weird how
Yeah.
things like that work, man. It's just and so but you never actually had like a visual of the ghost. You just always had like either physical or just hearing it, which is even creepier.
Yeah, the only people that have had visuals were my sister and my cousin, in which they saw the little boy, Andy,
Mhm.
and then they saw that tall black mass,
Right.
whatever it was, that dark shadow. Nobody
Did,
else has seen anything.
did anything happen to your aunt and uncle when y'all moved out? Or did everything kind of calm down?
Things still persisted. My aunt shared a few stories with me about that place. One in particular said that she like would always ignore, the prototypical adult,
Yeah.
someone that doesn't want to deal with this shit. She would like ignore the footsteps, she'd ignore everything. But she said there was one instance, it was the summertime. She heard someone like walking, like stomping back and forth in our apartment. And she's like, the fuck is going on? They're like stomping really loud. I'm just trying to relax, watch this movie, whatever. So she like goes upstairs, knocks on the door. The door is locked. The footsteps stop. Like, okay, whatever. So she goes back down and they start up again. So she calls our house phone upstairs. So like for your younger listeners, we had landlines. Yeah. So she calls our landline and goes to the answering machine. Yeah, we had that too. We didn't have voicemail.
Yeah.
And just goes straight to the answering machine. So my dad had a cell phone out at the time because of work. Like they gave him one. So she calls his cell phone and he picks up the phone and he's like, "Hey, like, what's going on?" And she's like, "Hey, where are you guys at?" And she's like, and my dad's like, "Oh, we're at so and so's place because we're having a barbecue." And she's like, "Are all the kids with you?" She's like, "Yeah, like all the kids are here, all the cousins are here, whatever. My mom is there as well. Yeah, we're probably going to be back maybe like 9 or 10 o'clock tonight." And she said that she hung up the phone. She was like, she played it cool. She's like, "Oh, okay, all right." She hung up the phone and she locked herself in her room until everybody came back home.
I would have done this. I would have probably just left and be like, you know what? I'm gonna go do something until people get back.
Right? Yeah, I'm not gonna deal with this shit anymore.
Yeah, that's golly, man. That's insane, dude. I couldn't imagine, bro, just having to deal with that. But at least you finally moved to where the final straw where you're trying to enjoy a video game and you can't because it's calling you and you're like, man, I'm done.
Yeah. And being a teenager, we did some stupid shit when we were teens. And my cousin was the king of doing stupid shit. Because I remember one time it was me, my cousin, and my sister hanging out in my room, and like the door was shut. I forgot what we were doing. We were like playing Need for Speed Underground or something. And I find it funny, but maybe investigators and like exorcists wouldn't find this funny.
Yeah.
We both, the three of us, watched the fucking doorknob turn opens slowly by itself, and my cousin's his dumb ass, he sticks his hand out and he starts saying, the power of Christ compels you, the power of
Oh,
Christ
God.
compels you, and that fucking door shut itself. My
Like,
God, I gotta talk to him about that again. Some of the stupidest shit that we did that was probably really dangerous.
I guess it was like, well, not dealing with this one today, and just shut the door. Dude, that's creepy, man. It's funny, but it's creepy at the same time that it just listened to it like that. It opened it and was like, okay, get out of here. Let me go find somebody else to haunt.
Yeah, he's had some wild stories of shit, like wild Ouija board stories and stuff, like of stuff that he's been through that I've been trying to get him on the show, but like he has a bunch of kids, so it's hard to get a hold of him. But yeah, man, like a lot of us experienced that shit together. And it's different if it was just me.
Right.
You know? Because it would be like, okay, maybe it's real, maybe he's like making it up. But when I start talking to my other family members that experienced it as well, and some of us experienced it at the same time, it starts to fill in gaps of information of like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
this is how this is connected to this and this and that. But dude, it's just like you said, with your Nebraska story, you're just uncomfortable telling it.
Mm-hmm.
Like sharing the stories about that house, it's like it fucking knows.
Yeah, it's like it knows that you're talking about it. Yeah. And it makes you look over your shoulder and you're like, oh man. And I noticed that. And then I started doing, I'm like, wait, what am I seeing? And I think it depends on, like, for me, like the time of day too. Like when I'm recording, I went on a live, and dude, it was hard, like in the live till 10:30 or something, but it was like 9:30, and I'm sitting there, and the hosts are talking, we're talking, and I just kept going like it just felt like somebody was in the room with me right when I don't know what we were discussing, but it was like the whole time I just kept having to, and I do that a lot because I just sometimes I'll just sit here and I just feel like somebody just walked in, and I'm like,
it's like, whoa, okay, there's nobody there.
Yeah, and it's only this room, like my studio rooms. That's the only room I feel it in. So when the door's shut and I'm recording is when I feel it. Other than that, it's good. It's just as soon as I fire up the recording app, it's just one of those things.
What's funny about that is, like, I remember back in might have been like 2018 when I was still in grad school to be like a certified ESL teacher. One of my colleagues and fellow students, she was from, where the fuck was she from? She was from Algeria, and it's a Muslim country. Like, we got to talking about, like, hey, what are like you have ghost stories, your paranormal beliefs and stuff. And she told a story about this lady that was like possessed by a jinn or something, and she was so scared to say her name.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, we were talking, she's like talking about like all the weird shit that this lady used to do, and how she like went up to her, my friend, and her mom, and like started talking about all this shit. Dude, the atmosphere in that classroom, because there was only like 4 of us, because it's grad school, there aren't many students. Dude, it fucking felt like that lady was in there with us.
Yeah, dude, that's creepy. Now that's fucking, yeah, that, man.
Yeah.
The jinn thing is creepy, dude. I've heard so many stories. I heard a dude saying, I forgot where, I think he was in Iraq or something. He was in the army, Marines, and he went out and he seen this guy come out, and he's watching him. Hey, what's this dude doing? I guess. And he said he just walked up to the HESCO and just walked up and went over the top and kept going. I'm like, what? And it was, dude, the jinn stories that come out of there just, they're creepy, man.
Yeah, my friend, I think she might have like moved back to Algeria to teach after we graduated, but she had told a couple stories about like that same lady that her and her cousin was talking about her, in like they were in their house talking about her, and like her and her mom like ran into the lady, like I guess she was panhandling or something, and the lady like went up to her and would be like, why were you talking about me with your cousin? Type of shit. And she was like, fuck, like I'm never talking about this lady ever again.
Jesus. Yeah, that's the same. Oh my god. Yeah, no, I don't, at that point, what do you do? Like, you walk up and somebody tells you, why are you talking about me?
Like, I didn't know.
Are you subscribed to the show or what?
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's insane. I've always wanted to do a Jen episode and like talk to somebody that has
It-
actually had those type of encounters, because it's interesting to think about, because like you have like your Christian and your Catholic demons, right? And then like in Islam you have the jinn, and it's what I notice is like those things only affect like that certain area, and then like you have demons and stuff that like I don't want to say we believe in, but that exist in our faith that affect us. And I've always like wondered like
do
how
they
that work ever, does the
correlate,
wires
or
ever cross type of thing?
they team up and get one person? I mean, how
Right,
does
right.
yeah, that's something that's always interested me too, because they're born from what, smokeless fire, and
Yeah.
then demons are fallen angels, and it's just a
But yeah, Polar Bear, like the last couple stories I have are not related to that house. They're more so like things that happened to me recently within the past 10 years. So in 2014, when I was going for my first master's degree, I was staying in this kind of like studio apartment next to campus. It was for like upperclassmen. And I remember fell asleep, but my bed was against the wall. I was like wrapped up like a burrito against the bed, and I had fell asleep with the TV on, and I had left my light on and my kitchen light on. So I fell asleep, and I started dreaming that somebody was pulling on my leg, and it was weird. And then like I wake up, and my body's like diagonal and my leg is hanging off the bed type of thing. So that one was kind of harmless. But the other thing, in 2015, me and my girlfriend, now wife, we had moved into this 2-bedroom apartment. They call the second bedroom the den.
Hmm.
And that's kind of where like we had the computer set up and everything. And at the time, I think we had 4 cats. And the cats, for some reason, my wife like worked at night and she wouldn't get back till 1 in the morning. I would stay up until she get home. I'd be sitting there playing my PlayStation, and they would just sit in a line at the beginning of the hallway, just staring into that room for like no particular reason. That room always gave me the creeps.
yeah.
Then my sister came to visit, and she had slept on the couch because she didn't want to sleep in the room. And she said my cats like got up on the couch, sat up on the couch, and just stared into that hallway and like started growling towards that direction, making their like hissing noises
Yeah.
thing. And that in that apartment, you always felt like you weren't alone. You always felt like there was something there watching you. But like
Mhm.
nothing weird would happen. We didn't have like, voices being called or like names being called or like, footsteps or anything like that. It was just like a creepy type of feeling. But the last thing I will say about, my experiences in general, ever since I started doing the podcast, especially in that other house that I used to live in, that other house had like a ghost in it. It was a
Yeah.
previous owner, and it was well known that he was there. But ever since starting the show, man, you've mentioned this a couple times already, that you just get this feeling that something's there with you, and like you're always being watched. And I remember one night, like I was up late, probably like till 1 in the morning editing, and I had like my office room door open, and I just instinctively just kept looking over,
Yeah.
just kept looking over to the stairway for no whatever particular reason. I felt like something was gonna pop up. But that same night, fast forward to my first paranormal, like not paranormal, my first sleep paralysis experience, where I go to bed. I went to bed like maybe 1:15. I wake up, like had to have been like a couple hours later. And the way I'm laying is like I'm laying on my left side and I'm like this. And the way that my eyes are placed is like I could see, like it's not upward, but I'm like I can look at the ground, and
Mhm.
I couldn't move. But I'm conscious.
Mhm.
So in my mind, I start praying. And as I start doing that, immediately I can feel my toes. I can start wiggling my toes. I can start moving my hands, doing a little movements here or there. And for something in my mind said, don't move, don't look up. So I just laid there and just stared at the ground, because I know if I looked up, I would have seen something
Yeah.
that I didn't want to see. And ever since starting the show, like I would get night terrors. And I don't know if that's a product of like, listening to all of these scary stories week after week after week. They
Mhm.
kind of stick with you in your subconscious, where to the point like I would wake up screaming. I would like scream in my sleep. And my wife would like wake me up and be like, "Hey dude, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. I don't like, what do you mean?" Yeah. That hasn't happened for a while, but last night it did. I had this like creepy ass dream, and I had that same feeling all over again with the paralysis and all that stuff. And then thankfully I didn't see anything. But as a warning to your listeners or anyone listening to this, like if you want to go down this path with the paranormal, whether it be an investigator, whether it be having a show, bringing people on your show to talk about it, now this is just me, I fully believe that these things know when you're talking about it. And depending on what they are, they don't like that you're talking about it because it exposes them. Now, I'm not saying, we're going to be like the fucking paranormal Avengers where we'll like have like Captain America shield like laced in holy water, just chucking it at these entities to, fight them off. Definitely not the case. But knowledge is power, right? The more you talk about these things, the more you learn like these little safety nets that you can use to protect yourself.
Yeah.
And whatever you believe in, whether you're a Buddhist or a Christian or a Catholic, they're the same for some people that think that they're different, or a Muslim or whatever. Each one of those religions and each one of these beliefs that you see around the world, some of them within their history and their folklore have no connection to one another. But there is always some form of protection against spirits and rituals, whether it be like exorcisms or something of that sort. So I would say just like if you want to go down this path, just be fully prepared to have that eerie feeling that there's something watching you at all times while you're doing this.
Yeah. Prepare yourself. Be ready to protect yourself at all times, because you don't know what the other person on the other side of that camera, what their real intention is on their story either. You don't know what they're going to try to do. So
right.
Just a warning for everyone. Just not saying don't do it, but just be ready.
If you do it, it's super fun. Yeah. You meet a lot of people. Like you live all the way in fucking Texas. I live in Western Pennsylvania. And that's how we connected, like made a good friend with somebody that like was born and raised in the fucking boonies of Tennessee. Like lived in a fucking log cabins. Like
right.
So
you meet some
crazy
characters.
People. Yeah, it's all great because we all have the same goal, We're trying to do something here.
But Chris, I appreciate you coming on, brother. If you wouldn't mind plugging in where people can find you and all that good stuff, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yes, sir. And thank you so much, Polar Bear, for having me on your show. I would love to have you back on the Wandering Road. I know we're planning to have that soon.
We definitely do. We need to get a date set, and we can get that going.
Yes, but your listeners can find the Wandering Road podcast in all major podcast platforms: Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Wherever you listen and consume your podcast, you can find us there. If you would like to follow us on social media, we are on TikTok at TWR Podcast. If you want to give us a follow on Facebook, we have a Facebook page. You can go to The Wandering Road Podcast, search that, and it'll come up. And if you want to give us a follow on Instagram, we are at TW Road Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram. And if you want to get a hold of us and you want to be on the show like, Polar Bear was and our previous guests, we love interfacing with the community. We're never going to judge you for your experiences. We just want to create an open platform for people to come out and, share their stories, because you wouldn't know how many times we end a show, even with you, Polar Bear, where folks said, man, it feels great to get that off my chest because I've held on to that for so long. So if that's something you are interested in, shoot us an email at twroadpodcast@gmail.com. Never think that you're a bother. Same for Polar Bear. We love interfacing with the community. This is why we do this. So if you want to shoot us a message to either come on the show, or if you just want to say hello, just don't be shy. Get a hold of us.
Yes, for sure. Reach out to us. And Chris, I appreciate it. Well, that's it for tonight, everybody. If you want to be on the show, shoot me an email. The email address is polarbearhoth@gmail.com. Reach out to me on TikTok, Instagram, polarbearhoth, or you can go to Facebook, Highway of the Hidden. Have a great week, everyone.
All right, let me hit end recording for you, and we just got to wait for it to